Core in the cloud. Okay. Here we are. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our virtual faculty panel. My name is Jessica Tharp, Assistant Director of Office of Global Education. I've had the pleasure of working with our panelists, EJ Yoder and Jamie VanLewin this winter on their virtual study abroad programs. And I'm excited to have them answer a few questions today about their experience in teaching in this format. This session will be recorded and distributed for those who aren't able to attend. And let's start with a round of introductions. EJ, if you want to go first.
Hi there, I'm Dr. EJ Yoder. I'm in the communication department and I ran a virtual study abroad global education course called Food Fight in Barcelona, Spain.
All right, Jamie.
Great, I'm Jamie VanLewin, and I have the pleasure of working with the School of Public Affairs. I teach about 4 classes at the university every year. And then I also am the CEO and founder of the Global Livingston Institute, which is a close affiliate and partner of the University of Colorado, Denver. So delighted to be here today.
Thank you. And I'm just going to go through who I see in line here. So Michelle.
Good morning, Michelle Larson Krieg, and I am the Interim Executive Director for the Office of International Affairs.
Thank you. Jean.
Hi, I'm Jean Scanlon. I teach in health and behavioral sciences and anthropology. I've led study abroad, but not real recently. So I'm eager to hear about doing it virtually.
Cecile.
Good morning, everyone. Cecile Sharberly, Director of Marketing Communication International. And as you know, OIA, we work with both campuses, and I'm a huge fan of not only study abroad, but these virtual programs. I think once we're back on campus, that this is such a great accessibility opportunity for so many more students. And I love what the team is doing, and I'm looking forward to learning more.
Thank you. Katherine. You're muted. Katherine, you're muted. Oh, there you go. Okay.
There I am. Good morning. I'm Katherine Eber-Gray. Delighted to see so many of you. And next week marks my 1-year anniversary with the university. It's been great.
Soumya.
Hello, everybody. I'm Samira Barghan. I'm faculty member in the communication department. I have led study abroad programs in a few different countries, but not while in CU Denver and never virtually. So I'm super excited to hear what's coming up. And I do plan to offer one in India pretty soon. So really excited to be here today.
Thank you. Laura.
Hello, I'm Laura Thorne. I'm the Director of Education Abroad at Colorado State University. And I've heard a little bit of Jessica and Katherine telling us about the virtual programming, so I'm looking forward to learning more from your panelists. So thank you.
Nemo, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good to see your faces. Hi, Jamie. It's been forever since I've seen you. Nemo Hen, Executive Director of Academic Advising here at CU Denver. I'm here to listen in and learn because I'm also hoping to lead a study abroad in 2022 to Cambodia. So thank you all for putting this together.
Christy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christy Goldenhauer. I'm the HR coordinator for the Office of International Affairs, and I am one of the finance liaisons for faculty who go abroad. We help with the budgets and the reconciliations once the programs are over.
Thanks. Trang.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Huang Long, Finance and Building, Presence and Building Coordinator for OIA, and I am supporting EJ program this winter.
Thank you. Eva.
Hi, good morning. It's Eva. My name is Eva Larios. I am an academic advisor for the School of Education and Human Development. And I'm here to kind of just get some information or background information on the programs that will be offered for the students in SEHD.
Thank you. Nicole.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole Herman. I'm a study abroad coordinator with the Office of Global Ed.
Thanks. Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Wheeler. I am also a study abroad coordinator in the Office of Global Education.
Thank you. And last but not least, Allison.
Hi, Allison Shaw. I'm the Assistant Director of International Studies program. We also have the Peace Corps Prep certificate. So I'm here to learn about all the details from these folks running programs and hopefully share more reasons with students for why they should study abroad.
Thank you, Allison. So, Katherine, if you wouldn't mind giving a minute or two for a little bit of an introduction statement, and then we'll dive right in.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica. I am just delighted to see so many champions of study abroad joining us today. So thank you. And a very special thank you to Jamie and EJ for being our trailblazers here at CU Denver on virtual study abroad, along with some spring faculty who did a good job converting their programs last year. I don't have to tell this audience how virtual programming might be quite an exceptional addition to our global education portfolio and more durable than past the pandemic. With our diversity and our student body, I think it might stay a while. It won't replace travel programs, but augment them, along with a potential hybrid approach to this. Study in Denver, travel overseas, and return and unpack it for those people that may only be able to travel for 10 days. So I'll let EJ and Jamie tell you about, in their own words, about the student feedback, but I will say it exceeded our expectations. So OGE is already thinking about how we can assess that long-term impact. Will it lead to better job interviews, more graduations, higher GPAs, more people going for masters? I think time will tell, but so far we're optimistic. We also need your help in assessing this, as well as how to improve, manage, and kind of refine the whole experience. So maybe in a few months, we'll be having another discussion. Allow me to also mention that we have another initiative that we hope to roll out, and that is we have approval for domestic travel programs. We hope to start those in the fall and the winter, and that'll be travel here in the United States, maybe Alaska, maybe New York, with an international theme. And just imagine the possibilities. Also, imagine how many students will be interested in that wouldn't be able to travel, and how many international students might have be thrilled to travel here in the United States. So let's all listen in with a real open mind. And if you come up with some plans, please circle back and sit down and talk with us about your interest and your thinking, and let us help you develop some new programming. So back to you, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Katherine. I'd like to open it up for AJ and Jamie to give a brief overview of their courses. And if you have any visuals, you're able to share your screen. Who would like to go first?
I'm happy to go first. Is that all right, Jamie? Does that work? Great. I'm going to share my screen in a second if I remember, because I like seeing all the faces, and when I share my screen, then I can't see everybody, and it's so good to see all of you. I miss you, and it's nice to be in a Zoom room together finally after a long while. So January, I did the virtual study abroad food fight, which is identity construction through food and food ways in Barcelona, Spain. And I'm going to just give you a quick rundown of how it ran, so you get an idea, We January 3 through 15, and it was 9 to 12, 3 hours every day. So that included Saturday and Sunday. I did give them Sunday off of the Zoom, but they had assignments they needed to accomplish and work on that day off. And there were 3 sections to the course. There was live stream, There was virtual tours, and then there was readings and quizzes in the Canvas. Live stream was probably the most successful part of the course. We had 3 guest lectures that were live streamed. We had food and culture lecture. We had a Spanish politics and history lecture specific to Catalonia. We had a Mediterranean diet lecture by a nutritionist, a Spanish nutritionist. And then we had a tour of the Gothic Quarter, which is the oldest part of the city in Barcelona, with a guide that we usually use when we're in Barcelona. And he videotaped a tour, and then he narrated it live with the students. And then we had a cooking class. And the cooking class was by far the favorite part for all of the students. So I'm going to run this again in Maymester. And if we get enough students, we're going to probably add a cooking class, because that engagement was just, it was great. It was awesome. And then we were lucky enough to have virtual tours of the access to virtual tours of the Dalí Museum, the Sagrada Familia, which is a church designed by the architect Gaudí, and then also other architectural sites by Gaudí. And so we used those virtual tours. Students would view those before they came to class, and then we would do exercises and assignments in class and have discussion based on that. And then, as I said, we had the Canvas shell, in which they had their reading material, and some assessment was in there, as well as information about the final project and a few discussions. We did a few discussions through that Canvas site. So the course was phenomenal. It was amazing. And I am very lucky to have the strong third-party provider that I have. That's really what helped me out a lot. And I would say thinking outside the box was super exciting. And it was really, really fun to produce this. So that's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie.
Great. Well, thank you. And you know, in the true spirit of, I think what the University of Colorado Denver does really well is there's a collaborative approach to what we do. And so one of the treats of doing my course, or the course that we did in Uganda, was getting to know EJ and really sharing ideas and learnings. And I think what I'm most excited about this conversation is some of it is sharing kind of our experiences, but also just building off of each other's ideas. I think that in 2 years, I'll be curious to look at what our courses could look like from our learnings from this. One of the advantages that we had, and again, I wear a number of different hats, but with the Global Livingston Institute, for years, we've been building up our academic programs. So we have about 32 academic partnerships that we operate. And so our organization relies heavily on the exchange of ideas and partnerships between young people at our academic institutions and the community development work that we're doing in Uganda and Rwanda around public health, education, conservation. And so we had to pivot when COVID hit, because it was that piece of, well, how do we continue to do the community development work that we do, and still continue to activate and engage our students. And I think we learned a lot over the last year that will really change the way that we do community development work moving forward. The Global Livingston Institute was created to teach best practices community development. And so the idea is that students get that opportunity to learn from communities in Uganda and Rwanda, but we really try to teach core principles that you could use in Aurora, you could use in Barcelona, you could use anywhere around the globe, so that they translate to other experiences. And I think what we learned this summer, or this past January when we did this course, was how do we engage students on those core principles, even though they can't go to Uganda and Rwanda and experience it. So we have a team of about 40 Ugandans that work in the communities where we're at. So we designed our course to say, how do we give the students in this 101 international development course as close to what they're going to experience when they go to Uganda and Rwanda without actually having to get on an airplane. And technology served us well. And I think we're getting, in the true spirit for all of you, I think when you teach a course, the first one should be good, the second one should be great, and then the third one, you should reinvent it and rethink it and make it better. And I think that's what we're doing with this course, is that this first round, we're really pleased with the feedback we got from students, but I think we can do it a lot better. And actually, there's things that I learned from EJ that taught me kind of how do we continue to develop and grow on this. I'll be curious to hear the conversation we have today, but we tried to make it as interactive as possible, so that wasn't every day is a Zoom session, that every day is that one day we had Nasser take the students to the markets in Kampala, so that we can feel and touch and taste and experience what's going on. We had guest lectures, but then we moved from a guest lecture to a panel, and a panel to a breakout session, and a breakout session to going to the lake and spending some time with our team on the lake to experience what was happening in Uganda. And that we try to create as much of an interactive experience as possible, so that students really felt like they were part of the community in Uganda. And quite honestly, most of the conversations that took place in our dialogue or our facilitated conversations took place with Ugandans. And so even when I was doing a lecture, and we were doing a lecture on the genocide, we had Jerry, who's our research coordinator, being able to augment and to contribute to the dialogue. And so at the end of the day, when I look back at it, the COVID, the pandemic that we've experienced has made the core of our curriculum stronger. That when we can actually go back to in-person learning, we'll be better at the in-person learning, because I think that there's tools and techniques that we learn from this and helped us build out our curriculum. But more importantly, how do we engage students who don't necessarily want to go to East Africa and don't necessarily want to go to Uganda or Rwanda, or limited by what they're able to do? Are there teachings that we could be doing that allow students to still have an international experience without necessarily having to go spend 2 weeks in Uganda and Rwanda? I think for students the other side of it was, we also learned from our students that there's a group of young people now that we've connected with that very much want to go be part of the Uganda Rwanda experience. If you want to go do international development in East Africa, you actually have to go there to understand whether or not you really want to do that or not. So there's the phase 2 of that I think we're set up now to do. But what we learned is that we could do internships internationally. And so we have students right now who are working on early childhood education plans with our Ugandan teams to put together the curriculum and the strategies around that. We have students working on research around our public health initiatives that we're doing around World AIDS Day, where they're actually doing the research with Ugandans and having the exchange and the opportunity to culturally connect with the community. And I think that, the biggest lesson learned for me on this, and it's kind of a no-duh, it's something that you all who are doing international work, I think we all strive to do, but the more they can have that cultural connection to Uganda, even to the point where when somebody's doing a lecture and their screen freezes because there's not enough electricity in Uganda, is the same experience you have when you go to Uganda and you have been away from your parents for the first time and you want to Skype or call them and the electricity goes out. And so how do you give them that real experience about what it means to do international development? Because international development means communicating. And when you're working in developing countries, that means it's imperfect. And some days when you plan a whole series of events, you have to change all of those because the generator goes out or the town that folks are in doesn't have access to Wi-Fi. And that in and of itself is a learning experience. If we really want to teach young people those skills that they're going to need to be good international global citizens, how do we connect them with those opportunities and experiences? And so anyway, I'm so excited about these kind of conversations. I think that, EJ gave me, I stole this from EJ, so I'll lavish you with all of the credit for this, but we're already starting to think about, one of the biggest challenges for international development for a lot of our students are costs. So what kind of curriculum could we be teaching to our students about Uganda and Rwanda on the front end that would take 3 or 4 days in country that we could shave off so that students maybe instead of having to go for 2.5 weeks, could go into a 10-day trip that's less expensive and are still getting the content that they want. And quite honestly, maybe better. Like, there's a part of me that wants them to experience the people that they're going to meet and connect with the people that they're going to meet before they get on an airplane, so they know who Jerry is and they can get comfortable asking questions, so that the first time that we're meeting with our colleagues in Uganda is not the first time that they've sat around the table together. So how do we set that table in advance and then be really creative and innovative about how we do things? And then finally, I also think, EJ and I now have students that we're sharing. It's that piece of students who might not have the specific focus of wanting to do something in Uganda, but want an international experience, and then are enjoying that. How do we encourage them to go and take EJ's class? Is also doing something awesome, but in a completely different part of the world with a different perspective. And I think for all of us on this dialogue today, what's of enormous interest to me, especially with all the folks who are running study abroad programs, how do we share, opportunities and experiences and ideas, and how do we bring our students together for shared experiences? I think that there's a lot out there. So anyway, I'll stop talking. I'm just really encouraged by it. We're excited to teach the next round in May to kind of see how it goes and what that looks like.
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, and both EJ and Jamie are going to teach their course this semester because it was so successful. So they're going to continue with that. So I'd like to start with my questions. So what made you decide to teach a virtual global study program?
Do you care what order we do this in, or?
Matter, anybody who wants to go first.
Okay. Mine's pretty short and sweet. I mean, I feel like when the opportunity arose, we were, it was clear we weren't going anywhere. We had already had a few students signed up or had interest in it. And then we just decided, I figured, why not give this a try? I mean, I was already teaching online. I was comfortable online. And I just thought, why not? What's the harm? We could learn, we're going to learn no matter what venue we run this on, we're going to learn. So I thought it would be really exciting and new. And as I said before, I have a strong third-party provider, you don't have to have a strong third-party provider, but it really helps. And so we've been working together for years, and I knew I could count on BSAE to at least give it a good shot and be creative. And by the way, BSAE is Barcelona Study Abroad Experience, and they're just wonderful. And they came to the table with some great ideas. And then I came to the table with some ideas, and it was sort of a match made in heaven as far as development. So I found it pretty easy to pivot, but I also realized you have to go into it with an open mind. I believe Katherine said that earlier. The open mind is really, really important, and don't get stuck in they're not going to have the same experience, or trying to recreate the same experience. You're not going to be able to do that. This is a whole new ball game. This is a whole new way of doing travel study, global education, and I think it's pretty exciting. And I agree with Jamie. It opens up doors to students that we would not necessarily be able to reach with our on-the-ground global education programs. And that's the part I'm super excited about. I had students in my course that were, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I had students in my course that would never be able to financially travel. I had students who were from particular cultural groups in which their parents would never let them travel. And it was just so exciting to have them. I found the diversity of this particular class really exciting as well. So I'll stop now.
I think for us, one of the things that was really important was these are communities that we've been going to. We work in, year round. And when COVID hit, I think the other thing that's so important for universities to understand is the value added and how do we create a value added for the communities that we're serving. And actually, it taps into a question that Jean's asking. The students, the cost that we absorb for the class, we use to compensate all of the local staff. So for our students, it's actually, I always tell our students, I know I'm very aware of how expensive higher education is, but if it helps you sleep better at night, all that hard work and your resources are actually going to support local communities. Like 100% of the dollars that we generate from this course go into the local community. So we pay Nassar. And so it actually allowed us to really engage those folks. And I think it's really important right now on the international development side of things. A lot of those communities have been completely cut off. You think about all the universities around the country that completely went from thousands and thousands of young people going and traveling and spending money and investing in those communities to, they went dark. And so the other thing that's made us so excited about the work that we're doing is that we're learning how to engage some of those students in the other communities in the courses that we're doing. So we'll invite the students at the African Leadership University to join our class discussion with Agnes on human trafficking, because they want to be part of it, and to have a group of students from Africa in the same virtual classroom with a group of students from the University of Colorado, Denver is fantastic. And so for me, the whole purpose around and why I so appreciate the partnership we have with the university is because it allows us to create that exchange of ideas and that exchange of culture. And we've been able to continue that during the period at hand. And just I'll just comment on Ambassador Eber Gray's question around the sessions. We had to do most of our sessions in the morning because of time zones. So our classes were in the morning, but we did something interesting, and just food for thought for you all. We did mix it up, that we would do, some sessions were longer than others. We put in a lot more time for discussion than we have in the past. And we tried to stack it a little bit differently. So literally every day was not 9 to 11. And we didn't want to mess with their schedules too much, but we also didn't want it to feel like every day is this routine. That how do we mix it up and say, well, today we're doing an external experience. It's going to be an hour and a half. Tomorrow, get ready, class is 3 hours, and we're going to have a longer series of sessions. But so that there was a little bit of we nuanced it a bit, so it was a little bit different than just every day is the same.
Jessica, may I add on to that? Do you mind? If you don't mind, if we have a little bit of a discussion.
No, go ahead.
Okay, great, thanks. Jamie, this is directed at you because that's really fascinating, because I wanted to mix it up. And so this idea of food for thought here, I had a lot of students who were working at the same time that they were taking this course. And so it became really clear when I polled everybody at the beginning, like we had an orientation, just a meet and greet and a little bit of an orientation before the course started. And was real clear that they wanted a real schedule. They wanted a particular time because they had to ask off from work, or they had child schedules. And so that piece was, I was hoping that I could mix up the time periods, but I wasn't able to do that because of them being working students.
Yeah, and it might have been the mix that we had, EJ. I do think that by us mixing it up, what it did is there were certain students who literally every Wednesday morning they couldn't be in the class. And so if we were able to do it, it actually created it so that they didn't have to watch a recording. So there was always maybe a student who was going to have you kind of know that you're going to have students have conflicts, and you can record some of it, they can pick it up. But how do you mix it up? And that's we still had to do them all in the mornings because of the exchange in Uganda. But what we did do is over the course of the class, we would add things that were of interest to the students. So what became very clear for our class was that there's a lot of students who are trying to figure out what jobs and careers are available in the international sector. So we added an afternoon session one day where I had some of my colleagues join, and we spent an hour and a half talking to them about jobs boards and how to make connections and how to make introductions and all of those kind of things. And that was just something, we didn't have that built into the syllabus, but they were really interested in it. So it's like, let's find some time. And in the afternoons, we could kind of free up and do that. And there's always that piece of if there's a student who couldn't join us, and we figure out how to individualize that for them. We tried to, with the Uganda stuff that we do, and virtually and in person, we really try to individualize the courses as much as possible. So if there's a student who's really interested in early childhood education, we can connect them with somebody who they can have a much deeper conversation with and start building their networks out as we go along.
Thanks, Jamie. So the next question I have is, what were some of the challenges you faced in pivoting a traditional study abroad program to be virtual? And it sounds like one of the pieces is that time piece, because when you're in country, you have everybody there. Otherwise, you're trying to kind of get everybody to fit. And I remember receiving a lot of questions from students who were applying to your programs asking exactly when you were going to be meeting, because they needed to fit that into their life. So what were some of the other challenges you had?
For me, the major challenge was the time and time zones, and taking into consideration, when the live stream could happen, and working with BSAE and making sure that we were doing it within their workday. Because they wanted to be a part of this, and they wanted also the individuals that were guest lecturing for us. They were, had a regular work schedule in Barcelona, and so we wanted to be respectful of that. I don't feel like I had a tremendous amount of challenges. I feel like it went really smoothly. And I think a lot of that is because you need to be flexible. And I agree with Jamie as well. There are going to be some students that just can't make a particular day. And now if you're in country, that situation is usually they don't feel well, or they have jet lag, or in my case, maybe they had too much wine the night before, or, things like that. And you have to deal with all of that. But so, and you have to be flexible there as well. But so the flexibility was different. It was like, well, I have childcare. I don't have childcare in the morning, and my husband has to be on the Zoom at his work. And so, I may not be able to attend class, or saying, hey, you know what, bring the kids, whatever, whatever you're comfortable doing. But so I think that it was a different type of flexibility that I had to adjust to. But I really didn't feel like I had huge challenges, other than making sure I kept a real open mind about how to make this work.
Those are great points. I think another thing, and for those of you all who have done international development programs in person, I mean, part of the joy and the value of the programming is that you start building these unbelievably awesome peer networks, that young people get to know each other because they sit on a bus together, and the first couple of days of a program, everybody decides they're going to be best friends, and the last 2 days of a program, people have decided that they might not want to see that person ever again in their life, and all those things are healthy. Like, that's good student development, is to kind of figure those pieces out. And the biggest challenge, I think, for me in teaching the international course and having to take something virtual like this, is that you lose that peer camaraderie and that peer interaction. And so we really push it. I think we're going to push it a lot harder in May around how do we get you to know one another? Because I promise, like, and part of the discourse of international development is not agreeing with everything that EJ says about international development. And how do we get into that area? And what does that look like in terms of equity and privilege and all those things? And it was harder to dip into. I think we're going to push it a little bit more in terms of getting the students to get to know one another. And some of you all might have some ideas or exercises that we could do, but I almost want the students to meet with each other individually or connect with each other leading up to the class, so that there's oh, I didn't know you were doing this, and I didn't know you were about this, so that they feel a little bit more comfortable. Because once you start jumping on the Zoom, it's a little bit harder to get people to spar, and it's not. That's not the intention, but I want them to like really wrestle with things. I want them to like decide, how do you feel about the genocide? Like, where was the fault, and what should we do to prevent that from happening again? And there's no way that everybody's going to agree on that, but how do you get them to feel comfortable enough to say things that might be a little bit more risk taking to be able to do that? And it's hard to do on Zoom. I think we're getting better at it, and I think allowing the conversations. And I will tell you that part of it, opening that up and getting it to thaw, is having other people supporting the conversation. So it's not just me having the conversation every day, it's getting more people to be part of that dialogue and feeling comfortable to exchange ideas.
Thank you. So my next question is, how did you market your program? Because they're really successful. EJ, you had 20 students, 2 students ended up withdrawing, but still, we had originally 20 students commit, and Jamie, you had 12. So how did you go about in marketing a program, especially in COVID times where students aren't on campus? What were some of the things that you would say we should?
Okay, so I did the traditional, there's some people on here who've run study abroad programs before, and you understand how, as faculty, how we pretty much do the marketing. And so I did some of the pretty traditional ways of marketing, and we're online, so sending out my flyer and to all of those in my class, etc. In my department, contacting outside of the department. Allison was very kind to market for me or send out my flyer in international studies, etc. The real assistance we got this year is, at least for my program, is, and I think this was true for Jamie's program as well, CLAS Advising started a highlights page for courses for the next semester, and they put both of our courses up there, and that's when enrollment shot up, because they had never done this before, I don't think. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but it felt like this was the first time they had done that, and it was the first time I was able to market a class, a global education class, on that highlights page, and that was so incredibly successful for us. And that page just went live for Maymester, and we have, believe Jamie's program is up there as well. I think both of our programs are up there. So I'm interested to see how it goes for Maymester. So I feel like that was an anomaly, but something that I hopefully can count on in the future. So those of us if you're marketing within CU Denver, CLAS's highlights page, I would highly suggest.
Cool. And the only thing we've been teaching this class, gosh, Jessica, we're growing old together. I think this is like year 8. We've been teaching this course. It's been a long time. So we have great usual suspects that we share it out with, and they share it. And then, as you all know, as professors and as study abroad leaders, word of mouth will either help you or hurt you, depending on the quality of your course. And so we really lean on a lot of our students, and actually a lot of the UCD students who'd come on the trip the year prior really pushed the virtual experience. So I think we got some students out of that, and we'll hopefully lean on the students who participate in the winterim to help us fill our Maymester courses. But and I think working with each other, like the more we can do to work with you all to help push out your own courses that are important to you. And I know Nicole and I have talked a lot about Cambodia and stuff like that, but ways that we can let students know other opportunities are out there, I think is important for us all to share ideas and share people's courses that they're teaching.
Thank you. So my next question is, what did you find to be the most engaging activity or aspect of your course that you're going to continue into Maymester?
Okay, for me, it was any kind of engagement that we were able to have with people, folks in Barcelona. And I think that's, across the board, that's generally the most successful, even when you're on the ground. But our guest lectures, students have never asked so many questions of guest lecturers, even when we are in Barcelona, as the virtual students did. So that was I really enjoyed that, as did the guest speakers. They're usually guest speakers I've used before, and they were really thrilled at how engaged the students were. And then we do cooking classes to bring together the theory and the theory of identity construction, communication, culture, etc. And those were really, really successful. The students, because they got out of their chair in front of the Zoom and they went into their kitchens, and we all went into each other's kitchens. And then the person teaching the cooking class happened to be Catalonian, but he was in London because he was in lockdown in London, and he was in this tiny kitchen, his in-laws' kitchen. And he was just wonderful. You know, he's real flexible. He just rolled with the punches as far as where he was, as far as his kitchen, and the students were great. And everybody was just really thrilled to not be stuck sitting in front of the Zoom. So that made me think about what are other things that we can actually do together over the computer, but get up and move around. All right. And then also the students really seemed to be engaged when Dan, our guide, does his tour of the Gothic Quarter, because he really was able to make it so that they could almost walk through the streets of the Barrio Gótico. And it was just a wonderful experience. And so I'm thinking about what more we can do to keep them engaged. We had a panel scheduled and it only partially was able to happen. So I really want to make sure in Maymester we follow through with the panel in which our students are connected with students in Barcelona, or just people who live in Barcelona, all right, and get to chat with them about what daily life is like, you know, what their perception of the politics are, what's their perception of how they use food to construct who they are and who their family is, and how important their foodways are, et cetera. And so we're going to really work on making that panel happen in Maymester.
Yes. You know, I think from my standpoint, this is something you all, this is a little bit less, it's probably more esoteric than anything, but, you know, one of the things that we've been picking up on for the last 9 months, and you guys, anybody who's interacting with students knows this, our kids are really lost right now. You know, we're teaching these classes, and, you know, the content that I used to teach, I've been doing this for a long time, and you know, the most compelling thing to me is we've had to, the content's important, but they also just want to talk. You know, we were teaching our class on January 6th, and we have this lost group of students that on January 6th, the only human contact they had that day for some of them was our class. And they wanted to talk about what was happening. And so there's a connectivity part that as long as we're doing the virtual piece, and actually probably beyond that is really being aware of how do we make sure that we create enough space for them to, how does the content of what we're doing really connect with you and where you're at right now. And so it's been very compelling to me. I watched it this summer a lot because we ran probably about 20 different fellowship courses and experiences through our academic partners. This was the most academic based one where we really tried to replicate our class in January, but it's still very compelling to me that how do you create your, I think EJ said it well, how do you create enough flexibility and build it in there that you're getting that, but there's more to it. The dialogues and the conversations were interesting in terms of making sure that young people feel a sense of connection and being reminded. I'd be on the screen some days of like, oh my gosh, I might be the only person that you talk to today, and that you actually have a conversation with. And that's a lot. And it's important that we're paying attention to those things as we're building our courses, that we're keeping in that human element of it as well.
Thank you. I had a few more questions, but I think you sort of answered all of them in a lot of your responses. So I'm going to open it up to everyone else. I know there's lots of questions here. So maybe if you raise your hand using the reactions, I can call on you to ask a question. So who wants to ask the first one? Can also go into the chat. It looked like, let's see. So Katherine did ask about student feedback.
On our courses, we call this the dreaded Zoom silence. We have to wait for somebody to start the conversation.
Jamie, I thought your point about, you know, the time when you're abroad and students are together, you know, so intensively, and how do you kind of bring that element in? And I think that is hard with Zoom. I mean, you know, one thing now, certainly maybe, I don't know, I was thinking about like maybe buddies, getting students to be buddies, and as long as they're socially distanced and wearing masks and doing all those things, you know, they could take a walk walk together, or, you know, they could actually meet, or they could meet on Zoom. I don't know. I agree. I feel that way too with just other courses that I'm teaching virtually.
Yeah, I think, I mean, for me, the best sessions that we had were the ones where we really got them to interact with each other. And it's a hard enough leap in the classroom to get a student to engage another student with questions of, hey, Jean, what's your take on that? It's harder to do on Zoom. And so we're trying to facilitate that. But I think that part of it's just breaking down that comfort zone, because you're on the screen the whole time. So you don't actually really get to know that person outside of, so anyway, it's tricky.
Yeah, I agree.
I think my course lends itself specific to Food Fight, but also just in general being in the classroom. But Food Fight lends itself to set up, you know, ask students to get into small groups outside of the hours that you're on Zoom for the course, and maybe have a virtual happy hour together that, you know, is focused on course material, because my course is about food and people coming together and creating who they are and identifying who they are. And so, I mean, I could easily make assignments or ask them to come together and make a meal together over Zoom, which might be something that we'll experiment with in May. So I think I am lucky enough to have that, but that doesn't mean that couldn't happen. You know, this has made me think about all the other courses that I teach, and especially intercultural communication, and how can I get students outside of the regular, whether it's remote or regular material online, to get together, and sometimes making those actual assignments to, okay, the three of you are supposed to meet at a particular time that works for you. And I give them prompts for conversation, but I ask them to record those, you know, and turn them in. And they tend to be really successful, especially during COVID. I've been a little shocked at my Zoom recorded discussions. Usually students are like, oh my God, I got to do this. Oh my God, I got to what? And then they kind of gripe a little bit, but then they get together and I don't even worry about whether they get to the prompts. You know, if they get to some of the course material by the end of their Zoom recorded discussion, they're just getting together and they're interacting with one another. And I feel like that's been really helpful during COVID, is to create this space for them to, I don't care if they chit chat. I just don't care. I think it's great. They've just desperately needed it. On our end, as far as instructors, and then of course you have to watch that. You know, if you've made an assignment, then you have to watch it. But I've actually found them to be really wonderful to watch. So.
Oh, EJ, that's a great idea. And I think also when we do international, culture's always a piece of it, right? Food. You know, when I think as an anthropologist, food is, so I think that can be built in. And of course, it's a part of study abroad anyway.
Right.
No matter where you go, no matter what the topic is, you know, you're eating local foods. So I love that idea.
Right. Thanks.
Soumya, looks like you have a question.
Yeah, thank you. This was so informative. I had a question about budgeting, because when I, you know, offered my programs, I found that to be the most difficult part, not just because there are so many, you know, line items, but also to be sure that we are not overcharging students, just to have all of these things in mind. And now if we are doing virtual, how does that change? And I know like the next few minutes are like is not enough. So I guess my question is, who should one reach out to with help? I am surely going to reach out to EJ for sure, you know, but you know, is there also, you know, how do we go about like creating a budget as well, like which has so many components that one has to look into? And I think it's such an important part of a program.
I would say any one of our OGE staff, because we've worked with
sorry, Jessica,
one of our
which
study abroad staff. So
okay,
you can reach out to me, you can reach out to Nicole, you can reach out to Emily. And we worked on, like, gosh, dozens of these budgets. So we're more than happy. And then as well as our finance staff. So Christy and Trang in our finance unit. So they're also, they're finance folks. So they're very experienced in that. But yeah, definitely connect with EJ too from a faculty perspective, I think. That would be really helpful.
And one follow-up question. So when we turn in our proposal, at that point, our budget has to be pretty done, correct? It has to be like a complete budget when we turn in the proposal to propose the program.
I would say it could be 90% done because we consider it a draft, and then we'll come back with you and work with you more on the specifics. But as long as it looks like most of the components are there, then you're good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. We have 5 more minutes left. Is there any more questions? One last question. Okay, well, if nobody has any more questions, I want to thank my panelists, EJ and Jamie, so much. Are there any last words you want to share before we head off today?
Thank you, everybody. It was great. And I like this idea that Jamie keeps saying over and over again about working together and sharing ideas. And I have always loved when I get to sit down with anybody who's done global education or wants to do global education, because you have ideas for assignments or in-country exercises or things to do that we can really, really need more conversation with one another. About what we're doing and what we're not doing, or what worked well or what didn't work well. And of course, then there's always the opportunity to tell war stories, about all the crazy things that have happened to you in country with your students. So I'm open to conversation at any point in time.
Well, and just to add that one, we'll, Jessica, if it's okay, we'll share the information about our classes that are coming up. For those of you who aren't teaching, I have students who are interested. We'd love to get as many kids involved as possible. And then 2, anybody who is in the developing stage, Somia, or anybody who's working on developing your content, jump in on one of our classes or sit in and listen to join us for one of our lectures or discussions. And I agree. I think even if we had a kind of a best practices jam session once every quarter or every 6 months where we just got together and shared, I got to tell you, we're already taking EJ's idea around what do we want to do on the front end of our courses once we start going in person. So would love to be part. I would gladly sit in a group and learn from you all for an hour, what you're thinking and what you're hearing down the road. But know that you're most welcome with our Maymester course to sit in or join us or anything that we can share. So, and thank you both, so Ambassador Eber Gray and Jessica for bringing everybody together for this. I think it's great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so if
Thank you, Jamie. That's fantastic. I'll surely take you up on that. Thank you.
Great. I'll look forward to it, Sonia.
Yeah, so if you're thinking about developing a virtual course, please feel free to reach out to EJ, Jamie, or myself, or anyone else from the Office of Global Education, and we're more than happy to help you through this process. Thank you again.
Have a great day, guys. Cheers.
Yeah, have a great
Stay
day.
warm.
Take care.